Trapezoids will take like seconds. Okay, someone tell me the answer to number 1 on the bell ringer. Can you tell me how to solve? And what'd you get on the next line?
5x plus 3x plus 1x plus 2.
Plus 1x plus 2.
Wait, plus 1.
Equals what? 7 still, right? Yes, okay. And then what'd you get on the next line? Okay, and you subtracted 1 from both sides and got 8x equals 6. Then you tray, so you divided and got 6 over 8, which reduced to 3/4. My math is off today, so someone needs to check me. Speaking of my math being off, notice that I changed those problems on the 6-5 worksheet. I hope you noticed that yesterday. If you didn't change those problems, you're going to need the Pythagorean theorem, and we haven't talked about that yet. So you can be brave and leave them as they were, or you can make them easier for yourself and change the numbers. Okay, what is the answer to number 2? I kind of was wondering if it would be myself. When you type square root of 58 in your calculator, what did you get? 7 point what? 6. Something, something, something. Which is bigger than 7. So it says it's greater than this. So we have to go with a number bigger than this, which is why we're going to go with the 8. If they had changed the words to less than, it would have been 7. Okay, and then number 3 is the easiest one of the day, I think. I would love to hear your answer. It is E. We know it's not 1 because in quadrant 1 both are positive. Why is it not quadrant 3 either? Both would be negative. So they only have opposite signs in 2 and 4. Very good. Today's bell ringers, I think, were easy. I mean, easier than usual. Okay, moving on to the notes. So today we're going to talk about trapezoids. One thing you need to know about a trapezoid is that unlike other shapes where we just call everything sides, we actually name the sides in a trapezoid. So the top side we call a base. The bottom side we also call a base. And then, what is it called when a piece of furniture is connected to the ground? What is this called? It's called a leg, which is what it's also called in a trapezoid. I think they stole that from trapezoids. I think it was called a leg first of trapezoids. So the first thing you need to know about a trapezoid is how to name the sides. The next thing, which is the only fact we have under characteristics of trapezoids, and that is that same sides add up to 180. So if I put a 1 rainbow here and a 2 rainbow here, those two are supplementary. And if I wanted to draw a key to myself, 1 rainbow plus 2 rainbow adds up to 180. That's all we know. That's all we have. Well, that's what I want to say, and that's not technically true. We still know exterior is still 360. We know the interior sum is still going to be 4 minus 2 times 180, so it's still 360. We can still do the angle stuff we did in 6-1, but there are no other characteristics like diagonals do this or opposite sides or that. There's nothing else we can list. All we have is that the angles on the same side are supplementary. Okay, if you look at your handout, there is a little bubble inside the trapezoid bubble that says isosceles trapezoids. So there is a special kind of trapezoid called isosceles trapezoid. What does isosceles mean in an isosceles triangle? It's the same thing with an isosceles trapezoid. 2 sides are the same length. Two sides are the same length. I stole this from you. I better go back forever. Okay, so not only do we know the 2 sides are the same length, but if you read the characteristics of an isosceles trapezoid, we also know the base angles are congruent.
Miss Compton?
Yes, ma'am.
Was Daniela Gomez in first period this morning?
No, ma'am.
She was not?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we know these two match because they're base angles. But we also know the other two base angles match. We only know this if it's an isosceles trapezoid. If it's not an isosceles trapezoid, we don't know that. So there are two characteristics with isosceles trapezoids besides the fact that obviously the sides match. It's the base angles are congruent and the diagonals are congruent. So you can draw your diagonals in. If you're reading through your notes, this right here is still talking about the base angles. Okay, I don't see a lot of standardized test problems on diagonals of trapezoids. They don't. They'll either do something with the base angles or they'll do what we're going to get to after our two examples with the mid-segment. They don't do a lot of diagonal things because you've already had enough diagonal practice. Dear. I don't know. I felt like you were waiting. Okay. Okay. Number 1. Are there any questions about our markings or anything? Okay, then number 1. They asked for the measure of angle D. What should I put? I know I can put a 55 here because those two are on the same side, so they're supplementary. 180 minus 125 is 55. Danny is right about that. Do I know that angle D is also 55? No, I don't. I would only know that if it was an isosceles trapezoid. So let's make it isosceles, and then Danny would be right, and that would be 55. If it is not an isosceles trapezoid, we would be stuck. You would have to select not enough information, no solution, something like that on a standardized test. Okay, and then number 2 says find the measure of angle L. What number should I put? 180 minus 40 is 140. She is correct. What kind of trapezoid is this? Is it normal or is it isosceles? It is isosceles, but do you need the fact that it's isosceles to solve? No, because we're just talking about the same sides being supplementary. That works for any kind of trapezoid. Are there any questions about any of this? Most of the questions either involve the angles, either testing to see if you understand the base angles match in isosceles or that they're supplementary. And then the second thing they do involves the mid-segment. So if you draw a line straight through the center, theoretically, of a trapezoid, it's going to be parallel to each base. And they call it the mid-segment. And we can actually figure out how long it is. There's a formula for that. It's equal to half the sum of the bases. So it's supposed to be marked on your worksheet. Make sure I did that right. Yeah. It's supposed to be A, B, C, D, E, F. And if you mark that, then that formula makes sense. But that letter formulas like that are a bit too complicated, too much to read. So I'm going to make it a little easier. I'm going to call the top base, base 1. I'm going to call the bottom base, base 2. And we're going to say that base 1 plus base 2, if you split it in half, you'll get the mid-segment. Base 1 plus base 2 divided by 2 gives you the mid-segment. I would put a star by it. Because I love you dearly, but you need to learn that one. You add the two bases, divide by 2, you'll get the mid-segment. Okay, so let's look at number 3. They give us some numbers. They say HJ is 32, LK is 60. They ask us to find MN. So what should we do? Add the two bases, so 32, because that's base 1, plus 60, because that's base 2, divide it by 2. You'll get 92 over 2, which is 46. Okay, 3 is easy. I know you can do that. I'd put a star by 4 because it's the hard example of the day. Here's why it's hard. They tell you HJ is 18. They tell you that MN is 28. And then they ask you to find base 2. They ask you to find the length of LK, which is base 2. So it's a harder question when you have to solve for a base. Okay, so we knew the formula was base 1 plus base 2 over 2 equals the midsegment. We know they gave us the midsegment, that's 28. We know they gave us base 1, it's 18. We just don't know base 2, so I'm going to put an x there. So I have 18 plus x divided by 2 equals 28. The hardest thing is setting up the equation, which is why I write my formula and just plug in my numbers accordingly. Okay, if you multiply both sides by 2, the denominator cancels out. You have 18 plus x equals 56. If you subtract 18 from both sides, you get x equals what number, Trey? 38. Which means LK is 38. That's the hardest kind. If you had your 6-4 and 6-5 worksheets done and you were ahead of the game, you could go ahead and do the trapezoid practice problems. I was on practice with the trapezoid practice problems. The hardest are going to be 5 through 8 because some of these are going to be like number 4, where they give you a base and a midsegment and they ask for the other base. Okay. Got my video. If I call your name, it's come pick up a piece of paper. Because Grant was on it yesterday.